This regular meeting of the Board of Education is called to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Volsa, please call the roll.
Mr. Acom? Here. Mrs. Click?
Here.
Mrs. Schneider?
Here.
Mrs. Mahalis?
Here.
Mr. Cebulski?
Here.
All right, we begin tonight's meeting with the resolution to recognize excellence. The Aurora Board of Education is proud to recognize and congratulate Deepti Pangalore and Dallas Cole as Rotary Students of the Month. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Would Deepti and Dallas please come up to the front? Mr. Hayes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mrs. Mahalis, as well as the rest of the Board of Education for allowing us to shine the spotlight on two amazing Aurora High School seniors. We're going to begin tonight by talking about Deepti. And I'll start by sharing some sentiments from her teachers who nominated her for Rotary Student of the Month. Beginning with Mrs. Karakostas, government teacher, she said, "Deepti is a remarkably positive and kind student, always bringing a bright smile to class each day. Her self-motivation is truly inspiring, as she constantly pushes herself to become the best version of herself. Beyond academics, she is actively engaged in her community, passionate about sports, and deeply committed to her education." Math teacher Mrs. Simmerman said, "Deepti is just a ray of positivity. She doesn't get bogged down when things get difficult. She buckles down, smiles, works hard, and gets it done. Her attitude and grit are the reasons she comes out on top. But the reason she stays on top is how she treats everyone around her. She makes you feel noticed and welcome." I was glad to have gotten to be part of her story. And finally, Mrs. Lindley, English teacher, said, "Deepti's smile warms a room while her personality warms everyone's hearts. In class, she builds up every one of her peers with her positive energy and enthusiasm for learning. As she moves into her future career in medicine, her warmth will be the perfect accompaniment to her brilliance, and her patients will be so lucky to have her by their side. She engages all students around her. She is an includer. She is the first one to reach out to others to collaborate on a project. She is deeply involved in the community through cultural activities with her temple and is a class officer. She radiates kindness and compassion for others, puts her entire heart into everything she does, consistently participates in class, engages and leads small groups, and is just overall truly amazing. It's my pleasure to recognize Deepti Pangalore."
Good evening, everyone. First, I want to express my deepest gratitude to the Rotary Club and board members for this incredible honor. The Rotary Club's dedication to youth clubs and community service is truly inspiring, and I am grateful for the opportunities it has provided. The impact Rotary has on young leaders is outstanding, and I'm honored to be a part of that mission. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Deepti Pangalore, and I am a proud student of Aurora High School. This community has shaped me, supported me, and given me opportunities to grow as a leader, student, and person. None of this would have been possible without my family. My dad is the hardest worker I know, teaching me that with dedication, anything is possible. His sacrifices push me to work harder every day. My mom is my rock, always encouraging me and supporting me. I owe everything to them, and I am so grateful for their love and guidance. At Aurora High School, I have committed myself to making a difference. As class officer, I have helped organize events like Senior Beach Day and Sled Day, bringing my class together. Through National Honor Society, I've had the privilege of volunteering for Princess Prom and Night to Shine, creating unforgettable experiences for others. In Greenman Global, I've worked with second graders to teach them about different cultures, fostering inclusivity and curiosity. One of my most meaningful experiences has been playing volleyball for Aurora. As captain, my biggest goal wasn't just about winning, it was ensuring that every girl felt like she belonged. I worked hard to build a culture of unity and support, ensuring that the values we created would last long after I was gone. Representing my community has been an honor, and I take pride in being a role model for other younger athletes. One place where I felt a strong impact is in my AP Literature class. While I've always been drawn to science, this class became one of the most comforting parts of my senior year. Not because of the subject itself, but because of the teacher who made learning feel like home. Mrs. Lindley has made this year so much better simply by leading with kindness and reminding every student that they are capable of learning anything. The world needs more teachers like her, and I feel incredibly lucky to have had her in my life. Looking ahead, I will be continuing my studies at The Ohio State University, majoring in biology or psychology on the pre-med track. My goal is to attend medical school and become a pediatrician, dedicating my life to advocating for children in underserved communities and ensuring every child receives the care they deserve. Thank you to my family for your unwavering love. Thank you to my school for shaping me into the leader I am today. And thank you to board members for this recognition and for your commitment to service, leadership, and youth development. Aurora will always be home, and I will always be grateful for the people who have made me who I am. Thank you.
And next, I'll turn it over to AHS Assistant Principal and 612 Special Services Coordinator, Mr. Victor Torres, who will introduce Dallas.
Deep, congratulations. Next up, we're going to honor and recognize Dallas Cole, starting with AHS English teacher, Mrs. Lindley. The two words that come to mind when I think of Dallas are diligence and integrity. Dallas is willing to put the extra work in to succeed. Multiple times we have met because Dallas is constantly striving to improve. Dallas's integrity of promoting equality and acceptance through the Stop the Hate Club, as well as his everyday actions, will serve him well as he studies political science in the future. Our world needs more hardworking and empathetic people like Dallas as leaders. Next up is from AHS music teacher, Mr. Burdett. Dallas is a wonderful student. I've had him in class for the past 7 years. He is friendly and well-liked by everyone. He has a great personality and instantly makes everyone feel special. That is a great attribute for an aspiring politician. Dallas is always willing to help and volunteers for many events. He truly does everything he can to improve things for others. He is also a very good musician, a strong leader, and an excellent public speaker. He has recently been recognized for his poetry reading. Overall, he is an excellent person, and I'm blessed to have him in my life. Next comes from AHS social studies teacher, Mr. Price. I've been lucky to have Dallas both as a freshman and now as a senior. And throughout the years, he has remained a positive and uplifting person in the classroom. He has an ability to lighten the mood, actively engage in discussions, and contribute meaningful insights into any conversation. He always treats his peers with kindness and support, embodying the qualities of a great classmate and leader. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to present Dallas Cole.
Hello everyone, good evening. I would first off like to thank the Rotary Club members, BOE, for this award. Thank you for all you do, and thank you for providing this award to me. It means so much. I'd also like to give a very special thanks to my mom and grandma here tonight, and my dad who unfortunately couldn't have made it, and also my sisters and my entire family that continue to inspire me to make the world a better place one step at a time. Services that the Rotary Club provides include promoting peace, supporting education, and protecting the environment. Promoting peace is so vital to making our world more unified, and I believe that it is of the utmost importance and excellence to strive for a world of peace. Supporting education is crucial, as every young person should be offered the opportunity to succeed at the most unimaginable and difficult tasks that lie ahead. Protecting our environment means protecting the thousands upon thousands of innocent species that deserve to have a home and be healthy. Focusing on this issue is a topic that is constantly debated and must be dealt with, so it is incredible that the Rotary focus on this as well. Some of the clubs that I've been involved with over the past 4 years have been Aurora Amigos, which has given me the opportunity to teach Spanish to students at Layton. Also STARS, which has enabled me to use my voice to speak on opinions and has led me to become co-president, helping to give every student a voice and a true chance to be heard. I've also been involved in Interact Club, which has given me the chance to help others in need. Activities that I've been involved in has been Habitat for Humanity, where we helped paint siding for a couple homes a couple times, Rake and Run, where I raked leaves for elderly people who were unable to do it themselves, and also Princess Palm, where I was able to use my imagination to dress up as Aladdin and make the little girls happy. Sports I've been involved in within the school have been cross country and tennis. I've also learned how to remain more patient, focused, and dedicated to striving to achieve my goal. I enjoy volunteering and participating and bettering the community because I love being able to help those that are struggling. Being able to provide for those that have less than us is how we act human. Giving basic necessities, whether that's making turkey baskets for families who can't get them on Thanksgiving, or helping setting up Christmas trees in retirement homes, or even dressing up as an elf in July for special needs children. Those have all been opportunities where I was given the chance to make the world a better and more humane place. My favorite class at AHS has been AP US Government and Politics, thanks in part to my incredible teacher, Mr. Rubin. This class helped create a foundation for what my future could look like. I immediately became more invested in the politics and issues this country faces and learned more about the Supreme Court cases, struggles of our former presidents, and how our branches of government work to give us a democracy. After graduation, I plan on attending college either at Pitt University or Michigan State, majoring in political science, hoping to go into law school to study criminal and civil law. After law school, I want to start campaigning for politicians and work my way up into politics to hopefully run for a House seat or Senate seat. My goal is to really be able to give everyone a voice to be heard and feel listened to fix the issues that we currently face. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we got a motion and a second and didn't vote. Mr. Volleson, please call the roll.
Mrs. Click?
Yes.
Mr. Sobolski?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahalis?
Yes.
Mr. Acom?
Yes.
Mrs. Schneider?
Yes.
All right, thank you, students, for coming. Obviously, your futures are very bright, and we appreciate your coming tonight. And if you'd like to leave, you're welcome to do that now, or you're welcome to stay, whatever you'd like to do. All right, tonight we have, I don't blame you. Tonight, we have no hearing of public comments, and so we'll move on to the approval of minutes for the organizational meeting of January 7th, the special meeting of January 15th, and the regular meeting of January 27th. May I have a motion, please?
Moved. Second?
Are there any comments or additions, edits for those minutes? All right, Mr. Volleson, please call the roll.
Mr. Sobolski?
Yes.
Mrs. Click?
Yes.
Mrs. Schneider?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahalis?
Yes.
Mr. Acom?
Yes.
All right, minutes are approved as written. And next, we'll go to the superintendent's report. I understand you're yielding your time.
I am, and we're actually, this is where we come back and have an opportunity for our building administrators to share their goals. And so we're going to start with Mr. Hayes and Mr. Torres talking about AHS goals to start things off.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you to the Board of Education for allowing Mr. Torres and I the opportunity to provide an update regarding Aurora High School's annual building goals. You might recall that the primary goal each and every school year is to optimize student growth, performance, and achievement. And although AHS has experienced exceptional outcomes over the last several years, there's absolutely no way that we want to remain stagnant. And that's why we've embraced this theme of living, learning, and leading with heart this year, while having our staff members embark on a metacognitive expedition examining a multitude of areas associated with their roles as Aurora City Schools educators. And provided in the digital materials I shared with the Board of Education last week and the same print materials I provided with you tonight, just a reminder about these goals were grounded in a wealth of student performance data, as well as stakeholder feedback data in alignment with the roots of our strategic vision in hopes of allowing our students and staff members to continue to live, learn, and lead with heart.
Extending the notion of living, learning, and leading with heart, our staff has been committed to thoughtful reflection and collaborative efforts, ensuring that our instructional practices continue to evolve in ways that best support student learning and success. One of our key focus areas this semester has been a comprehensive audit of assignments, homework, and assessments, along with a review of our instructional strategies and pedagogical approaches. This work involves staff members completing individual audits of their own practices while also engaging in department-wide and interdisciplinary discussions to identify commonalities and areas for further refinement. These structured forums allowed educators to reflect on their methodologies, share insights, and explore innovative approaches to enhance student engagement and achievement.
And within the framework that Mr. Torres just outlined, our staff generated a great deal of qualitative data, and we subsequently analyzed that data for emerging patterns and trends. Some of those are outlined on the board in front of you. Things like diversifying assessment formats, giving students multiple ways to showcase their mastery, focusing on higher order thinking and differentiating and scaffolding skill development while placing a sincere emphasis on real-world applications. Now, as I mentioned, this work resulted in a great deal of data, and we tried to analyze for patterns and trends, but then what our instructional leadership team did was really try to narrow the scope and narrow the focus to give our staff members something a little bit more tailored to approach their craft in the future. So with assignments, homework, and assessments, we narrowed down to enhancing relevance and personalization with clear connections to our competencies or the roots of our strategic vision, as well as incorporating feedback and reflection as integral components. This means getting our students to think truly about their learning. When we look at things like instructional and pedagogical approaches, we had focus areas of integrating inquiry-based and cross-disciplinary learning, as well as fostering social and emotional growth through instruction. And again, we have clear connections here to our competencies. And just like we want our students to have individualized and differentiated approaches to their learning, we want our staff members to have individualized and differentiated approaches to their own professional growth to best serve the needs of our kids. And now, this resulted in a great deal of data collection, a great deal of metacognitive reflection and refinement, but it also led to a lot of actionable change that's already taken place this school year, positively impacting our students' lived experiences. We wanted to take a few moments to share some of those anecdotal examples.
So as Mike alluded to, beyond the instructional audits, patterns, and trends, I'd like to highlight some specific examples of how our work aligns with key competencies in accordance with our district's strategic vision. Starting with critical thinking. Our Spanish department expanded the Accountability Partners tutoring program during A time, allowing students to support one another in a structured, teacher-guided session. This initiative has been shared across departments, fostering a culture of peer learning and mentorship. Additionally, we have revamped our after-school peer tutoring program, also known as the ASSC by our kids, to make it more accessible and effective for students who need extra support. By refining this structure, recruiting more peer tutors, and ensuring targeted academic assistance, we've seen increased student participation and stronger connections between learners. We've also reimagined our ELA instruction by embedding scholarly research into lessons, helping students draw modern-day connections to classic literature. Resilience. Our MTSS team developed and implemented a new series of freshman mini lessons that focused on executive functioning skills. These lessons emphasize time management, study skills, communication, and organization, essentially equipping our kids with foundational skills necessary for academic and personal success. I will also add that student feedback has been overwhelmingly positive and appreciative of the lessons that we've implemented. Collaboration. We've also seen the formation of new interdisciplinary professional learning communities, better known as PLCs, fostering meaningful connections between subjects. Starting with math and science, AHS math teacher Mrs. Duncan and AHS science teacher Mrs. Watt have collaborated to align key concepts between AP Pre-Calc and AP Environmental Science, helping students draw connections across discipline. Music and performing arts. The music department has initiated combined orchestral and choral performances, providing students with a richer cross-disciplinary experience. In English and social studies, AHS English teacher Jessica Tresco and AHS social studies teacher Jake Knapp have formed a PLC centered on universal design for learning, better known as UDL, strategies and interdisciplinary writing integration, ensuring that our kids are strengthening their literacy skills across the curriculum.
We've also had a number of experiences both in and out of the classroom that have helped shape our students' sense of empathy. For example, we recently had a guest speaker from Rwanda connecting with our juniors via Zoom, sharing their insights and perspectives that align with our students' historical readings. We've also had a number of teachers adjusting their practices to help students realize that empathy doesn't just extend to other people, but also their surroundings. For example, our environmental science classes have taken just a little bit of an adjustment to how they communicate with students to help them realize that empathy extends to the lived experiences, the organisms and species literally making up the world around them. When we look at things like balance, we've also had teachers prioritizing student balance between their academics and extracurriculars. We've had staff members embracing mindfulness strategies to help de-stress students. And then at a more tactical level, these audits led to a robust examination of our freshman biology PLC to look at the alignment between assignments, homework, and assessments, and how we can eliminate any potential barriers to optimize student growth and performance. And the feedback from students and parents alike thus far has been excellent. And then moving forward to innovation, there's no doubt that generative AI has played a critical role this school year in helping our teachers continue to evolve their practices. For example, we've had a number of teachers using AI tools to examine their assessments in alignment with state standards, as well as looking at how then they could maybe adjust question types on their assessments and ultimately their instructional strategies to close potential gaps for students and generate even higher quality student data. And when we think about things like our cybersecurity program, that speaks to innovation in itself, but we've been able to partner with a number of people to bring into, and organizations to come into our campus and connect with our kids about the innovative work that's going on in this immersive field and how our students can prepare themselves to be future ready. This also extends to taking our kids off campus, where they've gone to the University of Akron and partnered with staff and faculty members to engage in hands-on learning within the cyber range on Akron's campus. Now, all of this work took place in the first semester, and already we're almost through with the third quarter. And in the third quarter already, we've had our staff members do audits of our systems, operations, and structures, as well as our communication methods with students, staff, and other stakeholders.
Our instructional leadership team has already started diving into this data collected from these audits with collaborative efforts. We aim to identify trends and patterns that will inform our next steps, shaping future professional development opportunities and instructional focus areas.
And as the semester winds down and we go into the fourth quarter, our staff is going to be auditing our extracurricular undertakings, as well as what we're coining as celebrations, praise, and uplifting, which is kind of, we're examining a variety of things, including our PBIS values and principles, our awards, and basically how we're elevating the climate and culture for students and staff members alike. But again, ultimately, the very nature of this intentional and strategic and metacognitive work is helping to create a truly sustainable learning environment for our kids that optimizes student growth, performance, and achievement while embracing and upholding the roots of our strategic vision and allowing everyone in the greenhouse to continue to live, learn, and lead with heart. So that's what we got for you.
That was a lot.
Open any questions if you
You
got it.
mentioned something about student feedback being positive. How did you get the student feedback from Chris?
So Victor mentioned that in regards to our MTSS lessons, and we actually embedded a student survey form on the spot that they filled out in real time, so that we generated thousands of responses over the course. We did 3 different mini lessons and had approximately 250 kids fill out the surveys, and they had a variety of question types that gave us feedback to how we can continue to tailor the sessions, and just seeing how helpful they felt that they were. So.
Well, it's encouraging to see how aligned you are to our strategic vision. Thank you.
Any other questions?
All right, thank you, Mike.
Thank you for the time.
Victor.
Thank you.
And now, are we to you? Yes. Okay.
Join me up there, and I'll get this on our slideshow for this.
Thank you for the handouts, too.
Okay, so we go from the building goals of the high school now down to a K through 5 initiative. And quite frankly, I'm starting to get nervous that the board is going to get a little tired of seeing Jen and I come up here again to do the science of reading and dyslexia. This is actually part 3. Only part 2, I think, with Mrs. Miller here, our reading coach and literacy expert. So just to backtrack a little bit, a little history on this. I know that some of our board members have been here since we started this, and some came on a little bit later. But this is actually part 3. I was going back and looking at my notes and presentations. The first time I actually updated the board on dyslexia science of reading changes was December of 22. And then last year, January of 24, Jen came with me to talk about where we were with this initiative. And now it's part 3, February 2025, to talk to you about sort of the next phase and what we are obligated to do in terms of from the state, and then also how we've gone about doing that. So if you just look at our agenda up there, I'm going to take the first part of this and sort of go back in time and talk about some of our requirements, legislation, and then talk a little bit about what we have done this year with our pilot. Then I'm going to turn over to Jen, because Jen's really been most hands-on working with our teachers. She's going to talk about the pilot. She's going to just do a quick reminder of the science of reading, sort of the national approach versus Ohio, talk about how we're approaching our pilot and the requirement to implement a high-quality instructional material. And then I need to end with, I was searching for the best word. I kind of put blessing in quotes up there. It's a blessing. It's an understanding of this is where we are and this is what we're obligated to do. And I need the board to say, yes, we understand that. Go ahead and do it. It's not necessarily a resolution, but that's sort of where we stand right now. So let me get this started. So this, moving back to December of 22, that's when I first came to talk to the board about this. I think everybody is aware that this has been a big push in Ohio, and there started with some legislation that was surrounding dyslexia. There was a guidebook that took a long time for the state to come up with, but the bottom line is that there is a body of research called the Science of Reading that really updated all educators about how the brain works, how students learn, what are the best approaches. And so what we started to do a couple of years ago, even before all the most recent legislation, in response to the science of reading becoming more well-known, is that we turned our approach, and this, I talked to the board a little bit about this, to a blended approach. What does that mean? It just means that we have made fundamental shifts, and we have increased the amount of structured literacy, which is that sort of explicit instruction that kids get every single day on letters and sounds, and how you put that together and build those basic reading and skills. So we started doing that a couple of years ago, increased that with what our UFly resource, and we especially hit that hard K through 2 and as needed as they get older and 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So we did all that. We started that dyslexia professional development, so that was K through 3 when we had to, from the state, we were given these learning modules and we had to implement that professional development, all teachers K through 3. We have done that. We changed a lot of our screening assessments and interventions to meet all the requirements. So this has all been done. More recently, and I think I brought this to the board in the summer and talked about this previously, there was another layer coming from the governor about professional development, and it needed to be done for all staff. So we've been working on that this entire year. We're almost complete with that professional development from pre-K all the way up to the high school, depending on their pathway and what they needed to have done. That is to be completed by June. We're almost done with that. And then the last piece in terms of the SOR and then the stipend, we are required to pay our teachers for that professional development, depending upon their pathway, which I'm close to being able to do. I'll be working with Mr. Vollison's office, Treasurer's office, to make sure that that's all set. We'll pay them. We will immediately submit for reimbursement from the state of Ohio. They've allocated dollars to make sure that that our staff members are paid. So that's sort of just a backdrop of all that's been going on for the last couple of years. It's been very busy with that. Another acronym, all these fun acronyms. So we talked about SOR, the science of reading. What we've been working through this year is HQIM, high quality instructional materials for K through 5. So I have just a little excerpt over there. We know that we are required to start to implement a program this year, and we've done that with the pilot. And then we do need to purchase and adopt officially that program, that curriculum, by the end of this year. So we've been working through that. When I first came to the board, I didn't know if there was going to be money to help us pay for that. I didn't know if there was going to be enough stipend money to go around for all that training. There is. That has been funded to a certain extent. There is a high-quality instructional material list of approved programs that we had to go through and kind of vet those out, and we've decided to pilot Benchmark Advance this year, and Jen's going to talk about that. And I'll talk about the budgeting. I guess I'll save that for a little bit later in the presentation. But and we have received funds for that to a certain extent. Our concerns remain the same. So I do want to say that loud and clear. And without saying too much before Jen goes, we are concerned about a program being a one-size-fits-all and interfering with some of the best practice approaches that we've implemented here in the last decade or so. And a lot of that does have to do with the lack of differentiation. We know students have different needs, and we need to meet those needs. And we have our typical approach is to focus on practices, not just adopt a program that is handed to us, because it's hard for a program to work the right way or in a best practice way for all students, every district. And remember, these are national standards too. They're not even necessarily linked to Ohio standards. So there's a lot of work we have to do to take this program that we are required to purchase and implement to make it work for our students here in Aurora. So that's a point I want to make clearly to set the stage for Jen. Is that good enough for you, Mrs. Miller? All right. The show is yours for a little bit. Oh, let me talk about that. Let me talk more.
Okay.
Go back. One thing, really quickly, and then Jen's going to talk about the pilot. Just the structure. I should talk a little bit more about this. We decided not to have all teachers do the pilot. We thought that would be overwhelming, especially at the lower levels. So you can see what we did up there. K1 and 2, we had 3 teachers per grade, meaning 6 to 7 sort of kept our standard approach. We had others, those teachers who volunteered to pilot. 3, 4, and 5, they're already in teacher teams, so it didn't make sense to do that. So they've pretty much piloted as a whole. And what we've been doing this year is sort of training, learning, trying to trim, make it ours. But as we move into next year, that's the full adoption and revision. So I did want to say that before Jen talks about how we've merged with the framework, and obviously I want to thank Jen and our principals for their patience, and then all those pilot teachers, because it is a lot of work as we're trying to go through this, and it will continue to be a lot of work. All right, now I really am going to turn it over. Go ahead, Jen.
Thank you. We have been trying to stay very true to the National Panel of Literacy and their recommendations for what's best for our readers and writers. And what they came up with is this body of research that says we need to make sure we're explicitly and systematically teaching to all 5 pillars and big ideas that kids need in order to be successful in their literate lives. What they did not intend to happen was for the research to turn into a one-size-fits-all scripted program. What they wanted it to be is an ongoing body of research that's always evolving and always changing, and saying, what are some explicit things we can do for our kids, but what can we also do to make sure they're having a lot of opportunities to apply and practice those skills in authentic ways in the classroom. So the state of Ohio gave us 8 choices, and we, through lots of work and through lots of meetings and presentations, chose one called Benchmark Advance. Our challenge with this was to mesh the program with our literacy framework and make sure we were staying true to designing learning environments that still align to our strategic vision. So rather than turn a page, say a script, turn the page, say the script, we really wanted to make sure we were giving explicit lessons in both reading, writing, and phonics, but also giving them ample opportunities to practice that in the classroom. So I just wanted to share with you a few ways we did this, because I'm super proud of it and I'm very excited and thankful for the pilot teachers that have taken on this work to overcome the challenges we were facing with a scripted program and make it work for our learners. In the reading block, they want to make sure you have a mini lesson that teaches a very specific isolated skill. But what we added in to make sure our learners were getting what they need is we add small group instruction in so that kids are reading across multiple genres, multiple books. They're getting feedback in the moment from their teachers on what they're reading and talking about their reading and the skills that they're learning through those mini lessons. So we do want to stay true to the research and offer explicit lessons, but then also make sure we're differentiating and giving kids feedback and encouraging them to read authentically multiple times throughout the day. Same thing in our writing block. This is some of my favorite work I've seen. The teachers give a very explicit mini lesson. This is how you write a topic sentence. And then our writers go off and write a topic sentence. But what this has enabled us to do is to make sure that kids are writing not just specific to that, but they're able to then apply it in other content areas across settings. So we're able to see that they're using these great strategies across multiple settings throughout their day. So this common language and this explicit lesson has offered us that common language to say, do you have a topic sentence? Does your topic sentence introduce what the reader is going to learn about in your writing? And then we also stayed true to making sure we're conferring with our writers often, having small strategy groups to give feedback, and making sure we give them opportunities to share their writing and be really excited about their writing. Lastly, in phonics, they do have a very specific scope and sequence we need to follow, very explicit phonics skills we need to teach, but we blended that with a multisensory approach to make sure kids are engaging with the sounds and the letters and the patterns and the multisyllabic words so that they're able to use those strategies in their reading and writing. So in closing, I just want to assure you or assure our community that we are teaching kids explicitly how to read, write, and apply phonics patterns, but we are authentically giving them opportunities to apply that. And that application piece is the most important piece for our young readers and writers. So with that being said, I want to take the time to thank the pilot teachers. They have put in countless extra hours to help blend this program into our current framework, and without them, I would be drowning. The principals and Mike and Paul have also offered time for us to meet and reflect and really make sure that we're paving the way for when all teachers adopt next year. And I am very grateful for all the time and support they have given the pilot teachers and our team. Does anyone have any questions?
Well, I just want to make sure I understand. So because of a legal requirement, we're being forced to purchase a curriculum,
That's
right?
correct.
And then we're trying to stay true to our vision by
Correct.
continuing to do what we've always done, because we've done it really well.
Correct.
Now we just have to do it with this other curriculum. Go ahead.
Yes.
By the time it's paid for, it'll change again.
That about sums it up. I don't like to spend money, so I tried to cut as much as I could out of the budget to make sure we're only getting the materials that we need, and the extra, we don't want boxes collecting dust. So that is another thing Paul can talk to you a little bit about, but I've worked relentlessly with our rep to say, this is where we're at, and this is what would be most helpful for our teachers in our district, and she has been awesome. I mean, we have been cutting things out and less units and less explicit materials and more hands-on materials, and she's really worked with us. So that helps me a little bit more in spending this large amount of money.
You probably do like to spend money, just not towards money.
Just on shoes.
You're leaving me up here? Just in case you are further. So thank you, Jen. I appreciate that, and I'm sure the board appreciates having those, specific examples of what that looks like with the kids and the teachers in the classroom. So, yes, we are required per House Bill 33 to have an adoption this year completely as we go into next year. The language is not implement with fidelity, but the language is implement, and we will meet the language in the letter of the law. So in terms of budget, you can see some of the numbers up there. I have to be honest, I've told you this before, if you were to buy the whole program, this is absolutely an unfunded mandate. I mean, it just is. They gave us $135,000 for a core curriculum material K through 5 along with intervention materials. When we first started this, and Mike and Bill can attest to this, I was concerned that we were going to have to spend roughly $300,000 on one program, which is a tremendous amount of money. We don't spend money on that. We are very fiscally conservative. So we have $135,000 from ODU. That's been deposited. Mr. Vollison has it in the general funds. I actually set aside roughly half of my whole curriculum budget for an entire year, the $102,000, and sort of scrimped along, rotated some things. And I told Mr. Vallis and Mr. Roberto I might also have to dip into the general funds just to meet this legal requirement. Jen has been great. The camp has been great. Like I said, we tried to trim, get the digital resources, not buy units that we don't need, that are review units, et cetera, et cetera. I can go on and on. So the concern is not necessarily going to be our reality, but I guess in terms of the understanding and the blessing that I need to go forward and meet this legal requirement, is that I think we can take that amount from ODU, that $135,000, and potentially, for another 40 to 50, that's it, meet this legal requirement and get the materials. Meaning that money that I set aside, even within my own budget, we'll still have a surplus for that or a carryover, and we won't be dipping into the extra general funds or shooting my entire budget on meeting this legal requirement. So I'm thrilled to be able to say that. It's not complete yet. We're still in negotiating, the negotiation phase and going back and forth. Just got some more numbers today, but I'm pretty comfortable in saying that, it'll be under 200 and potentially even only 175 to 180. And I don't want to say 100 only, because that is a lot of money for a program. But where we started from, I think we're doing pretty good. So I know that was a lot, but it's been a big undertaking for the last few years that we've been working on. So I just want, full transparency, everybody to know where we are, and this is what we have to do, and we have to spend this money, and this is how we've done it, and we have to adopt. But we'll stay true to our framework and to our strategic vision, and we'll do what we need for our learners here.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
What were some of the things that stood out about this program that you guys decided to go
Good question. I'm glad you want to take that.
Yes, absolutely. That is a really great question. This program is aligned more to a workshop type model like we were used to. They keep the mini lessons mini. So this program, more so than any of the other programs, limited teacher talk and allowed time and resources for practice opportunities. And we felt that was really important, that, the people doing the learning, the people doing the talking are the ones doing the learning, and we wanted our kids engaged and talking and reading and writing, not sitting and listening and being compliant. And that really stood out to us with this program. Yeah. This program also allowed us to keep our current phonics program that we have so much research on that says it is really working for kids. We've had tremendous growth with our decoding and our fluency and on all outside audits. So we did not want to give that up. We had trained and worked, and it worked so well. This program allowed us to have our own phonics program with this, and that was important to us. Great question. Thank you for asking.
I wanted to just reemphasize that without Jen's understanding of how young people learn to read and write, we would not be able to take a program like this and pull the best of a program. First of all, recognize that this is, of all the other programs that are out there, this is one that we can make it work. But then pull the best of that out of there. And with her time and energy and leadership, and then with the pilot teacher's time and energy spent on that. And by the way, that time and energy is not reflected in that 130 whatever that is there. We never would have been able to even approach being able to cover that without all the extra things that were put in there. It's just, we were very blessed to have someone like Jen and Paul leading this initiative to be sure that it fits what Aurora learners need, what our young people need. So thank you to you too.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, board.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so that concludes your report. Take us. All right. Okay, Mr. Volleson.
Thank you, Mrs. Mahalis. I have two resolutions for your consideration this evening. First being the financial report for January. And in January, our expenditures exceeded revenues by a little over $2.9 million. decreasing our general fund cash balance to about $9.5 million 7 months into the fiscal year. The revenues were about 3.26% less than projected, and expenditures about 1.1% less. A couple of things on the revenue side. All-day kindergarten revenue was $127,730, so this is for the second half of the school year. And then also preschool tuition was $32,359, again for the second half of the school year. We also received our second amount of casino revenue. In January, we received $96,820, down a little bit from August when we received $99,132. It's kind of how it normally runs. You get a little higher in the summer, a little lower in the winter. People may not go out and gamble as much, I'm not sure. Expenditure side, nothing really to speak about. Everything's pretty much within typical variances. So thus far for the fiscal year, revenues are about $71,900 less than projected, and expenditures about $87,800 greater. So right now we have an unfavorable variance of about nearly $160,000 7 months into the fiscal year.
Okay. Exhibit D1 is a resolution to approve financial statements and reports. May I have a motion, please?
Second?
Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Volleson? All right, Mr. Volleson, please call the roll.
Mrs. Mahalis?
Yes.
Mr. Akam?
Yes.
Mrs. Schneider?
Yes.
Mrs. Click?
Yes.
Mr. Sobolski?
All right, resolution is approved.
Okay, second resolution, this is an annual resolution which we do. It's the resolution accepting the amounts and rates determined by the Budget Commission, and kind of goes on from there. But really what this is this sets the tax rates for this particular calendar year. So this ties in with what the revaluation was in Portage County, and also ties in with our debt service as we, from our alternative tax budget, which we filed in January, tells the county how much dollars we need to cover our debt for the existing bond issue. So that ties into what millage is assigned to that. And so when you look at it, for tax year 2024, total real property valuation in the district increased by 32.11%. So, which is kind of what was expected because of the large reevaluation. Went from $882,637,590 to $1,166,808,750. So it increased by $283,000. But what has happened because of that, our effective millage, first for homeowners went down by 9.62 mils. So now it's a total of 37.127 mils. And also for commercial industrial went down by 10.162 mils to 47.066 mils. So really what happened is that the residential millage overall went down by 20.6%. Now, when you look at it, you say, well, valuations went up by 32%, but if millage only went down by 20%, the thing is, the inside millage, the 5.6 mils, is not affected by this, and that amounts to about 12% of our total millage. So that's how the overall decrease in millage is at 20%, not 32%, which the valuation was. So in reality, we do get a few more dollars on our inside millage, as would the city and county, as those are the 10 inside mills, the non-voted mills that are not affected by House Bill 920. So inflation, we do get the additional dollars on that. So if there's any questions regarding this.
Thank you for that explanation. Exhibit D2 is a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission. May I have a motion?
Move. Second?
Are there any questions for Mr. Volleson? Please call the roll.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Akam?
Yes.
Mrs. Click?
Yes.
Mr. Sobolski?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahalis?
Yes. All right. Conclude your report?
Yes.
Okay. On to new business, we have Exhibit E1A, which is a resolution to accept gifts and contributions. The PTO donated $5,000 for Laps for Layton and $3,200 for rollerblades for Layton PE. May I have a motion, please?
Moved.
Second.
We thank PTO for both of those. Mr. Volleson, please call the roll.
Mrs. Click,
Yes.
Mr. Akam,
Yes.
Mrs. Mahalis.
Yes.
Mrs. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Sobulski.
All right, on to personnel resolutions. We have Exhibit E1B1, which is a resolution to accept resignations and retirements. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
We thank all of these people for their service, but we would be highly remiss if we did not make special mention of Donna Genoso and her serving in the district for over half a century, 52 years. I did some math, trying to figure out, guess how many students she reached, and I just lost count after a few, like 20,000, because I wasn't sure how many she repeated and what grades she taught where, but she reached a lot of elementary age students with her love for music, and we trust that she'll continue to do that in whatever she decides to do now, and it won't probably be with children, but in some other way. And I've been to concerts of hers recently, and I have to say her excitement has not waned at all. She's stayed true to herself. Any other comments? All right, Mr. Volleson, please call the roll.
Mrs. Schneider,
Yes.
Mrs. Mahalis.
Yes.
Mr. Akam,
Yes.
Mrs. Click,
Yes.
Mr. Sobulski.
All right, next we'll take Exhibit E1B2 through E1B6 as a group. I'll read through them and then I'll give a motion. So E1B2 is a resolution to employ support staff substitutes for this current school year. Exhibit E1B3 is a resolution to award supplemental activity contracts to district personnel. Exhibit E1B4 is a resolution to approve the introductory appointment of support staff. Exhibit E1B5 is a resolution to employ long-term substitute teachers for this school year. And Exhibit E1B6 is a resolution to employ support staff. May I have a motion?
Moved. Second.
Any comments or questions about those? Mr. Volleson, please call the roll.
Mr. Akam,
Yes.
Mrs. Schneider,
Yes.
Mrs. Mahalis,
Yes.
Mr. Sobulski. Mrs. Click.
Yes.
All right, resolutions are approved. Next, we have Exhibit E1B7, which is a resolution to award a new administrator contract to Mr. Hayes. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Well, I would just like to say congratulations to you. As your report tonight proved, you are committed to creating a positive learning environment for the high school students, and now we'll see how you do moving down through the grades. But I know you'll do well. You came highly recommended by Dr. Milstich. So thank you. Would you like to say anything before we vote?
Do you want to vote real quick?
Okay, we'll vote. Did I already get it? I did, yeah. Oh, yeah, we should vote, right, in case, yeah. All right, Mr. Collison, please call the roll.
Mrs. Schneider,
Yes.
Mrs. Mahalis,
Yes.
Mrs. Click,
Yes.
Mr. Sobulski. Mr. Akam.
Yes.
All right, now would you like to say something?
Just to the Board of Education, I just want to extend my sincerest appreciation for your support. The opportunity means the world to me, and I'm going to continue to operate with a relentless passion for our kids, our colleagues, and our community. And then to specifically Mike and Paul and the rest of our administrative team, I want to extend my deepest gratitude for your support, your collegiality, your leadership, your friendship, and I want to do in turn everything I can to support you all and empower you to continue to give our kids the best experiences possible while continuing to dream and believe and operate with heart. So thank you, and then I can't wait to get to work. And then just lastly, I take the role of being the Aurora High School principal as a great honor and responsibility, and to everybody in that building right there, and everyone who helps the greenhouse thrive, I can't thank them enough for the life they breathe into me and the inspiration they give me on a daily basis. I feel just so lucky and so grateful for the experiences, and I'm going to continue to operate with as much heart and soul as we navigate these last few months of the academic year. And I plan to do the same for the district in the assistant superintendent role for years to come. So with all the gratitude, all the best, thank you so much for everything. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, I think then, I'll take Exhibit E1B8 by itself. Resolution to approve the reclassification of licensed staff members. May I have a motion, please?
Moved. Second?
Any comments or questions? Mr. Volleson, please call the roll.
Mrs. Mahalis?
Yes.
Mr. Akam?
Yes.
Mrs. Click?
Yes.
Mr. Sobolski?
Yes.
Mrs. Schneider?
Yes.
All right, Exhibit E1B9 is a resolution to award administrator contract renewals. May I have a motion, please?
Moved.
Chair seconds. Any comments or questions? Mr. Volleson, please call the roll.
Mrs. Schneider?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahalis?
Yes.
Mrs. Click?
Yes.
Mr. Sobolski?
Yes.
Mr. Aiken?
Yes.
All right, and then without objection, congratulations to those administrators. Without objection, I'll take Exhibit E1B10 through E1B13 together. E1B10 is a resolution to employ licensed substitute teachers for this school year. Exhibit E1B11 is a resolution to award supplemental activity contracts to non-district personnel. And Exhibit E1B12 is the same, non-district personnel. And Exhibit E1B13 is a resolution to employ part-time support staff. May I have a motion, please?
Move.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Mr. Volleson, please call the roll.
Mr. Akam?
Yes.
Mr. Sobolski?
Yes.
Mrs. Schneider?
Yes.
Mrs. Click?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahalis?
Yes. Exhibit E1B14 is a resolution to approve a job description for transportation director position and pay scale. May I have a motion, please?
Moved. Second?
Any comments or questions about that? Mr. Volleson, please call the roll.
Mr. Akam?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahalis?
Yes.
Mrs. Click?
Yes.
Mrs. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Sobolski?
Yes.
All right, all those resolutions are approved. Exhibit E1C is a resolution to approve an emergency school closing on February 6th. May I have a motion, please?
Move.
Second?
Mr. Volleson, please call the roll.
Mrs. Click?
Yes.
Mrs. Schneider?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahalis?
Yes.
Mr. Sobolski?
Yes.
Mr. Aiken?
Yes.
And Exhibit E1D is a resolution to authorize membership in the Ohio High School Athletic Association. May I have a motion, please?
Moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Mr. Volleson, please call the roll.
Mrs. Schneider?
Yes.
Mrs. Click?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahalis?
Yes.
Mr. Sobolski?
Yes.
Mr. Aiken?
Yes.
All right, that concludes that portion of our meeting. And, under discussion items, we have board community communications. Mrs. Baker.
Yes. So Molly and I had the privilege of attending the OSBA's Beyond the Basics workshop on Saturday. We found it to be very informative. We also formed connections with other board members in Northeast Ohio, so that found that to be valuable. One of the themes, again, we've mentioned this after attending the OSBA workshops, is about the importance of community engagement and communication. We all know without the advocate, it's been such a challenge to reach stakeholders that don't have students in the district. And I think that timely communication from the board is important. We have so many things going on, like new administrative appointments, the levy renewal, and facilities planning, that I think it would be important to get ahead. But it's not something that I don't have the answers for. So I think what I would like to propose is that we form a board committee with the goal in mind to explore, different methods for community engagement and what the board's role might be in communication. So I welcome your thoughts.
Just to kind of second what Jen was saying here after attending that training, a big theme that always comes up is that community engagement and the board's role in being able to do that to strengthen public trust, to really open up a dialogue between the board our schools, families, and the wider community, really. Especially this year when we've made some pretty important decisions that I think we all feel very confident with. And so trying to communicate that to the community is the best way possible, and recognize that so many of our community members do not have children in the district. And so to reach out to them in the same way that we're able to do so with the families that have children in the schools with Final Forms. So they understand the challenges we face and the way in which we engage in those and look for creative solutions and stick to our strategic vision and everything we want to do for the district. I also think it would be important to develop a committee, whether it is an ad hoc committee to work on this at this point with an important year, or to have something on a more permanent basis of it being a standing committee.
Okay. So I think the next step then would be to talk to Mr. Roberto then about setting up that committee and I guess reach out to the board and see who wants to be on it and have more than two. And then we'll go from there. Okay?
I will reach out to the two of you, because since you're the ones bringing that up, we can kind of start the conversation to see who would ideally be on the committee from there. So, okay.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other, are there any board items? All right, then we are going to move into executive session to discuss the employment of a public employee, and we do not expect to take any action when we come out other than to adjourn. So, thank you all for coming.